Oh, what's up guys? My name is JDCook5 and welcome back to another episode of the F1 My Team series. We are still on season 1, but we are now on round 7, getting thick and fast into these as we go on to the monumental circuit that is Monaco. This is going to be a huge one. This is a circuit known to be so tricky, so many collisions, not many overtakes may we say, but so many collisions at the same time. We don't know what the weather's going to be. If it's wet, it's going to make a big fiasco for this race, but we are looking forward to getting straight into things and seeing what we can do in this Grand Prix. Practice of the first thing that we are commencing on, and I was really excited for it in all honesty. I was looking forward to it a lot. This is a big circuit that we haven't had much time on whatsoever, haven't actually used the Monaco circuit in the F123 kind of game as of the moment, but we will wait to see what it brings to us. We are on the dry circuit, which is quite nice, so we're going to be doing some practice programs just to see where we are at. So going into practice, we choose the setup just to be able to kind of work with the track. With the track being so different to many others, we needed a setup that was going to work for us. So many setups that you need to try for this circuit, because if you don't have a setup for this circuit, then you are getting nowhere in terms of lap times and positions. Trying the race strategy for the first thing just to see where we're at, and as you can see, the car nearly drifting completely on us and going straight into the barrier. But we seemed to do alright in all honesty, getting onto the bit of straight. Tyres were a little bit cold and we probably pushed them a little bit harder than needed. But yeah, it was definitely a decent start to the practice sessions. Third in the speed trap as we go through the tight chicane, as we go right and left. You can cut it a little bit without having to exceed track limits, but it is a bit of a tight one and you can be very wary of these corners, otherwise you will be exceeding track limits very, very easily. First lap was a really good one on the mediums and we seem to put in a decent lap of a 1:16.3. Obviously this is going to be nowhere near where we need to be and such. We probably need to be looking at the, say 1:14s I do believe when it comes to qualifying. 1:15s, 1:14s, if that's where the faster drivers are at for sure. But yeah, we're just looking at how we're going to be able to perform on this circuit, where we can push, where we can't push, and so on. I mean, as I say, Monaco is such a tricky circuit. It all means on the actual driver itself being me, and it's just, yeah, you have to push at moments and others at not. You have to be so careful of your front wing also, because it is so easy to clip them on the tight corners. Another drift here. Very hard to handle this car on this circuit. Not too sure why, but we seem to be pushing a lot, and maybe that's forcing a few errors. First on the speed trap now, so we seem to be doing a decent couple of laps, and as you say about the track limits I said in the previous lap, it is that easy to be able to exceed them and to be able to have problems when going over these sort of corners. It's so easy to cut them with such high speeds being maintained through the corners, but you have to be so precise at the same time. I mean, bits like this, not trying to go into the front wall, but you have to be so tight to it to be able to gain the best lap times at the same time. So it's definitely a hard one to be able to do so as we cross the line for a lap 2 and an even faster time of a 1:16.1, and that is on the mediums. 1:14.4, as I say when I was saying the 1:14s, that seems to be our fastest time in practice, with Lawson finishing in 20th. Nothing to go by in terms of practice, but definitely a good start for us as we look to go further on into the qualifying sessions now, as we get out there nice and early before everyone is on the track, not trying to have it where there's too much traffic on the track. I hate it when you do qualifying sessions and it's not you that's messed up, it's the people that are in front of you. That's such a frustrating thing when it can come to F1 games, but we all know that that is the case sometimes. As we look to try and push as much as we can on the softer tyre, they're nice and warm as we go down the hill into these tight bit of corners. It's such a strange circuit, Monaco. I'm starting to get used to it, but before I used to hate it in all honesty. Previous F1 games I wasn't getting used to it at all. And this setup has allowed me to do so, which is quite nice. I feel like with the setup that we've got at hand, I've been able to kind of get used to the circuit a bit more and push in areas that I wouldn't normally. Another bit where there's a tight circuit, a tight bit of the track, sorry, and we nearly exceed track limits though, but we look to complete lap 1 as we go into the final corner, hard on the accelerator as we go down the fairly long straight. It's not too long, but it's a decent amount to get up to gear 8 in the end. Normally about gear 7 you're normally at, it's that short in all honesty. And we do cross the line going into second place, a 1:13 being completed there, but as you can see there, 1:13's being completed all across the board. finishing in 9th there. Max Verstappen nearly getting into the 112s. Liam Lawson on 19th there, not the best qualifying session from him, but definitely good from us to be able to be in P9, and that stands us in very good stead going forward into this Grand Prix.
Proper road race, and in the true meaning of the word, that's how Mr. Monaco, the late great Graham Hill, once described this iconic event. The cars we drive have come a long way in the intervening half-century, but still we race on those same public roads beside the Mediterranean. There's no victory more coveted than that of the Monaco Grand Prix. We're on the French Riviera once more this weekend at the 2-mile-long Circuit de Monaco. The cars will climb around 40 metres up the hill, past the casino, and then descend towards the harbour through Sector 2. It's a very short run from pole position to the first of 19 corners, but don't expect to see much overtaking here today. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And starting next to them is George Russell. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Hamilton, Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Fernando Alonso, Cook, Gasly, Bottas, Magnussen, Joe, Ocon, Stroll, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Oscar Piastri, Albon, Liam Lawson, De Vries, Liam Lawson. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the run down into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It'll keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
So here we are then, we are waiting for the 5 lights out and we can get on with this race. Position 9th, Gasly behind us, and it's the lights out and away we go. Straight past Alonso, making a really good start with Norris just ahead of us. Engine problems already. I was an absolute rookie and never updated him, but I do believe they will last for this race at least, and we will have to look at changing on the next one. Putting them issues to a side, we have Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc in front of us, with Bottas and Alonso being behind us. A train full of drivers as of the moment as we look to go down the hill, completing the double overtake as we go past Charles Leclerc, sorry, not Carlos Sainz. As you can see, it's like an absolute train going down here. The yellow flag's being activated with how people are going so slow. No collisions being made, but yeah, people are going very slow as they don't want to make any sort of collision going into the back of their drivers. And yeah, it is a mental start to this Grand Prix when everyone is bunched together as we go through the tunnel with the noise echoing in the loud Monaco circuit as we look to go past through the chicane, cutting the corner a little bit but not exceeding too much truck limits as we look upon the marina now with the boats looking on at the drivers as such a picturesque setting for such circuit as we look to nearly complete this lap 1 of 27. Charles Leclerc behind us, Lando Norris and Bottas. Just in front we have Carlos Sainz and Perez. I think it's going to be the same as the last Grand Prix. We're not looking to overtake us, that we are in a good position now. Don't think we are fast enough with competition behind us as we go wheel to wheel with Charles Leclerc going into that first bit of chicane before we go up the hill and onto the power. This is probably one of the fastest bits of the circuit, with probably the longest straight that you will have. Doesn't last for too long though, as you look to go down to the hill, as you then go into the tightest of chicanes you could possibly think of. There's no speed that you can get through this whatsoever, only hitting into kind of gear 3 as you go down the hill there and then round the corner. Another fast part of the track would be the tunnel section. Again, this is probably one of the fastest bits in the circuit. Checking on in our engine though to see the percentage of the risk rating going up, so we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on that as we look to go further on in this Monaco Grand Prix, as we have Carlos Sainz 1.1 seconds ahead, and we do have a decent gap between us and Charles Leclerc. 500ths of a second only splits us, but we look to go try and at least trying to get the gap even better, and it's just being able to try to maintain this position. So lap 4 of 27, Charles Leclerc right behind us, but as you can see, his front wing has spun off into the track, and that is Charles Leclerc in the pits. A massive loss for the Ferrari man, as he looks to have the race in his home Grand Prix, may I say, also completely go to an end. And I think unless he gets a decent pit stop and he goes on the harder tyre, I don't think we're going to be seeing much of him this race. What a weird one that was. I was in front of him. I was nowhere near him. He seemed to have clipped the barrier or myself, and that is end of his race. But at the moment anyway, we might see him later on at the end of the race, especially if he goes on the harder tyre, trying to maintain this car as we look to kind of wonder what just happened. Are going through the tunnel now as we look to complete lap 7 of 27. We're on lap 6 currently, and once we go over that checkered line, we'll be on lap 7, leaving only 20 laps to go in this Monaco Grand Prix. Lando Norris behind us, 500ths of a second now splits from him and myself, as we look to have Bottas 1.1 seconds, Carlos Sainz 10 seconds ahead of us. We've got no chance in catching him whatsoever as we go late on into the brakes with this corner, and this is going to be a hefty one. Lando Norris in the pits. Oh, what's gone on there then? I think he's clipped his front wing also. No collision being made between myself and the McLaren, but it looks to be that he is going into the pits also, and he has clipped his front wing. What a mad kind of start this has been, and as I said at the start of this episode, before we even got into any sort of racing or anything, it just goes to show you the level of this Grand Prix and the such tight margins as we look to go further on in this Grand Prix. Lap 9 of 27 now, Carlos Sainz well ahead in 16 seconds, but our biggest worry is now Valtteri Bottas. We seem to be holding up anyone that is currently behind us as we look to gain as much momentum through the tunnel, late on into the brakes before we hit the chicane, going over the camber slightly before we nearly hit into that little bit of wall. It's such tight margins, there is no room for error whatsoever. Resume racing, something has gone on probably behind me as there's no yellow flags in front, as the green and yellow flags flicker on my screen. We're waiting, and Nick De Vries, the AlphaTauri man, blows smoke out of the rear wing, and unfortunately for him, that is the end of his race. An unfortunate event for Nick De Vries, in honesty. He's had an awful start to this season more than anything. Definitely a debut season he was not hoping for, and that is the first man out of the Monaco Grand Prix. As we look to complete lap 11 of 27, going on to lap 12, and we have been informed that the pit window is open, and we now look to go on the medium tyre and see what we can do. This is going to be interesting to see how this tyre reacts, if we're going to be any faster, if we've got more grip. I do not know. I did a few laps on the mediums and felt good, but the softest felt faster as we bang into the wall there. A real unfortunate one. Just double checking that we haven't got any front wing damage, and it has gone down slightly, but as you can see, the tyres are completely ruined as we go round this such-so corner before we go head into the tunnel and we race against Valtteri Bottas. 700 a second, 500 a second. He catches up so much on that bit of, just wondering if we're going to be fast enough on this straight. Don't want to repair the wing damage. I know they probably would, so we're going to say no, and hopefully we are able to hold up with what we've got and move on in this Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso getting into the mix of things, and as you can see in front of us, people are starting to pit. We're going to be getting nowhere near Lewis Hamilton, though. He will probably come out the pits as we go into them, because we will be pitting this lap. The tyres are completely shot, and because of that, we have now got front wing damage also. A real cut the corner there. I'm surprised we didn't get any track limits for that whatsoever. As we look to go around this final few corners, something hit into me, or I hit into something then, a weird feeling in the car, as we look to now go into the pits, and hopefully we can make our mark when we come out. Hoping for a optimal kind of pit stop to allow enough time. We do not want the same thing happen in Imola, where we had Lando Norris heading in front of us, even though he came into the pits behind us. As the tyres are on, 2.4 seconds is the pit stop, and Bottas remains behind us, and so does Fernando Alonso. Rejoining the Grand Prix 18 out of 21 currently, but we will obviously go up with the pit stops being made, and hopefully we can make some time on these mediums. Lap 14 out of 27 now, as we look to complete lap 15, and nearly 2 laps on these mediums, and as you can see, a green and purple sector, so this is definitely a better laps from us. Green positive as well as we go over the checkered line, and that looks to be our fastest lap with a 1:14.9. bit better from us as we get into the 114s. Obviously there's probably other drivers that have already got into the 114s without even struggling, but that is definitely a monumental thing for us as we look to push this car as much as we can. And as you can see, Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc are right in front of us here. Obviously people have pitted, so Leclerc has done a really good job in getting the position he has, but it's not because of him and it's not because of Norris, it is because of Logan Sargent. He is currently in front of him. He's not a back marker or anything, but he's probably got no tyres, and where the car is not the strongest, with it being a Williams, he looks to be holding up Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris as we look to kind of make a little bit of a break on that, as we try to stick with the three, as we look to try and overtake at least one of them, or even two if we are lucky, early on into the brakes, allowing myself no collision as we look to kind of go into the final corner. Logan Sargent has gone into the pit, so it's a matter of DRS. Us and Lando Norris will be getting the DRS as we go down the straight. We look fast as we put the overtake button on. We have no ERS late, but late on into the brakes, and we go past Lando Norris as we look to now go on to Charles Leclerc, who next to be will be our next victim as we look to try and push and push and push as we try and better our result in this Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc previously behind us, and he did hit into us or the barrier, meaning he had to pit. But we are now looking to overtake him. We are on the better tyre as of the moment. He's on the hard. He's going to have the grip, but I don't think he's going to have the speed, as it were, as we look to try and see if there's any sort of gap as we go late on into the brakes, wheel to wheel with Charles Leclerc, and another overtake in the exact same position as lap 1 out of 27, as we look to go on further in this Grand Prix, tussling with the car, as it seems to be that it's in Tokyo Drift as of the moment. Collision with the wall as we go easy into this corner and hard on the accelerator as we look to try and make a gap. Fastest lap being Max Verstappen, but we're not too worried about him as of the moment, because our biggest worry is Charles Leclerc going down the hill into the tight chicane. We go left, we go right, as we nearly bang into the wall once again. It's such no room for error. It is absolutely unbelievable, this circuit, and we are enjoying every single minute of it. I didn't think I'd be saying it in this sort of position that the car is in and the Grand Prix, but a 6th place would definitely be very nice for me at the moment as we go late on into the brakes into this corner, trying to literally just have a millisecond gained on Charles Leclerc. Hard onto the accelerator, and we look to complete lap 17 of 27. 10 laps left in this Monaco Grand Prix. The Monaco man himself, Charles Leclerc, right behind us as we go up the hill and charge on later into this Grand Prix. 1.4 seconds splits us with a 2.5 second gap between myself and Norris. Norris seems to be in fairyland as he looks to be well behind now, but it's definitely the tussle between myself and Leclerc, and he will definitely be catching up as time goes on with the harder tyre. Obviously the medium's going to decrease much more depending on how much he is pushing that harder tyre. He will seem to be kind of getting close to me, and I definitely feel like he's going to be any minute now. He is going to be up on my rear end as we look to try and gain as much time as possible before we go down the hill. Hard on the accelerator, banging into the wall once again, chipping away at that front wing. Early on into the brakes here, not too late, not too early. It wasn't too bad, to be honest, but we could have been better. And as you can see in my rear view mirror, Leclerc going around the same corner as I am as we tussle the car around that corner. Doesn't seem to like it whatsoever. Early on into the brakes before we hit the straight onto the tunnel, and we have Charles Leclerc now 600 a second, 500 a second. He's definitely catching up, and them hard tyres are warming up. Lap 24 or 27, and we're still in the same position. Charles Leclerc still behind us, and we seek to keep it that way also, and that is what we want. We don't want him anywhere near us as we look to try and go at least trying to defend it. Charles Leclerc, oh no, he's gone past us, but we all know what's going to happen as he sails into the pits. The exact same position for the Monaco man, and that is definitely confirmation of his Grand Prix coming to an end. An unfortunate string of events which lead him going into the pits twice, not for tyres but for front wings, as Lando Norris is now kind of back up, and he's woken up for sure as he is now only 200 of a second behind us as we go into the chicane, fighting this car, trying to see if we can do anything to gain as much time as possible. Late, and oh no, we are into the wall. Orange front wing, and there's definitely a lot of damage being made. Lando Norris, and oh my lord, how could you write it? The same two people, the same two positions, and Lando Norris is out of this Grand Prix. I mean, he's going to finish, but he might as well be out because he's not getting in the points. As you can see, he just goes right behind us. Not good enough from Lando Norris whatsoever, and I definitely couldn't do anything in that sort of position. Lap 26 to 27 as we look to complete onto the final lap now, and I don't think we're going to have any sort of bother from Valtteri Bottas or Fernando Alonso, as we have 500, 600 a second between myself and Bottas, and about a second splits us and Fernando Alonso. This has been such a weird string of events the way it's happened. Max Verstappen claiming the victory. As he looks to finish the Grand Prix, we've only just started the last lap, so that goes to show how far ahead he was in front of us, and that Red Bull is absolutely dominating things. I reckon he'll snap up the championship much earlier than everyone. It is insane. As we go down the hill, we're going to have a little tussle here though at the end of the lap. This is not going to be easy as we go really deep into their dive bombing into the corner, as we try and maintain a little bit of momentum going through this corner. And as we mount the curb, this is not the best position to be in. Valtteri Bottas right on the back of us, sniffing our rear end as we go early on into the brakes before we hit the straight, and as we look to try and gain a little bit more time. Doesn't seem too bad. I think we have got the faster car out the Alfa Romeo, and he doesn't seem to be pushing too hard. I think he might settle for 7th, but there is no room for error for us, because if we are, then we are going to be getting passed by Valtteri Bottas. Exceeded track limits, so yeah, you can tell the front wing is making a lot of problems for this car, and as we look to lose our front wing, we have no front wing now. We are literally kind of gliding past, and we can't do anything. I can't even go around that corner, and as we try and nurse the car home, as we see to end out this Monaco Grand Prix. What a crazy one this has been. This has been a funeral for front wings. As we hit the final corner onto the straight, Valtteri Bottas is well behind us, 300 of a second. Well, I say well behind us, it's a tight gap, but we crossed a checkered flag, and that is one of the best results we could have hoped for, in all honesty. P6 with the things that we had to deal with and everything else. I am very happy to take that. A Red Bull win for Max Verstappen, and the driver of the day for Valtteri Bottas. He had a very good drive, competing with us at a lot of moments in this track. I felt like I was holding a lot of people up, in all honesty. So yeah, a good race from us, and an unexpected one at the same time. Monaco is one of the weaker Grand Prix that I have, and I just don't feel comfortable at the circuit. The setup worked, everything else worked, and that was the main thing. If I weren't to do that, then obviously I would have felt at fault. But yeah, P6, we're getting points. That's the main thing. I mean, what we've had a 4th, we've had a 5th, and we've had a 6th in our last 3 Grand Prix. So can't really complain whatsoever. And we are moving on up in the F1 world, as we see now going onto the podiums, and the commentators talking about the end of the race. Big praise for Max Verstappen, and that is expected. I mean, this man has dominated this Grand Prix. He has dominated the whole title. I mean, in real life, in this game, he has been an absolute phenomenon. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell making up the last podium places, with Hamilton 2nd and Russell 3rd. Both teammates getting on the podium as they claim their trophies, and a very cool and snazzy trophy at that, being a mimic of the Monaco circuit. So yeah, congratulations from the JD Cook Motorsport team as they spray the champagne in the air in Monaco, and it will be an exciting night for the Red Bull and Mercedes team. So here's the standings then after the race. P6, Carlos Sainz in front of us and Sergio Perez. Bottas, Fernando Alonso, Magnussen and Gasly making up the points, and Liam Lawson finishing in 17th. Not too bad, but obviously you had Charles Leclerc and Norris Pitts. You'd probably have actually found him in 19th if they weren't to have those collisions, but a bit of improvement from the young Australian. And as you can see in the title now, what we're on 36, so we're above Lando Norris now, but it is now going to be Fernando Alonso we're going to be looking at. And as you can see in the constructors, that's who we are behind in general as well. So I definitely think we're going to be competing against Aston Martin in this series. So that's it for this Grand Prix. We're going to be going on to Catalonia next, and I'm very excited for that with the new chicane being put in. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more content just like this one, and don't forget to hit the notification button so you never miss a video. Cheers.